The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and burnt toast. Rosa stood by the sink, one hand on her lower back, the other clutching a tea towel damp with cold dishwater. Outside, the late afternoon sun warmed the patio furniture they never used. Inside, silence, except for the faint clink of dishes she'd washed herself, though it was Evelyn's turn. Again. She glanced at the wall clock. 5:22 p.m. No one was home yet. No text, no call, just like the day before, and the one before that. Rosa walked to the fridge and took out a container of soup she'd made for Mason. He used to love her lentil soup, called it Grandma's Magic Bowl. Now, he barely looked at her when she spoke. At 13, he had more screen time than conversation time. She set the table with 3 plates, then hesitated. Should she bother setting one for herself? Her phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn. "Running late. Don't wait. Mark picked up takeout." "No thanks. No love you. Just blunt efficiency, like she was the housekeeper." Rosa stared at the message. Her hands trembled, not from age, from something colder, something she couldn't name yet. She looked around. Everything in this house used to be warm. The sunlight, the colors, the photos. Now it all felt beige. Empty. Except for one thing. In the corner, beside the faded bookshelf, stood a dusty black case. She hadn't touched it in over 20 years. Rosa walked over, knelt carefully, and unzipped it. A saxophone. Silver with a dull patina, but still beautiful. Her fingers, though stiff, found the curves by memory. She lifted it, breathed in its old scent, a mix of cork grease, brass, and decades of dreams buried under diapers and dishes. She stood in the middle of the living room and gently blew one note. It cracked. She winced. She tried again. This time, it whispered. A third time, it sang. The melody rose, shaky but alive. It echoed off the walls, danced over the soup, curled into the ceiling fan, and spun through the air like a ghost from another life. Rosa closed her eyes. Her shoulders dropped. For a moment, she wasn't the invisible grandmother who cleaned up after everyone. She was the woman who once made people cry in smoky clubs just by playing 2 notes. She stopped. The house went silent again, and then the front door opened. "Mom?" Evelyn's voice called from the hallway, sharp, distracted. "What was that noise?" Rosa quickly zipped the case and stood up. "Nothing," she said. "Just dropped something." Mark walked in, holding bags of fast food, Mason trailing behind him, headphones in, eyes glued to his phone. Rosa watched as they dumped the bags on the counter, tossed her soup in the sink, and sat without a glance her way. Evelyn sighed, already annoyed. "Mom, I told you, you don't need to cook every night." "It's not for me," Rosa said quietly. "It's for Mason." Her daughter rolled her eyes. "He doesn't like lentils anymore. Just stop wasting food, okay?" Mark chuckled. "Rosa, maybe it's time you let Evelyn handle things. You've done enough." Rosa didn't reply. She just stood there, invisible in the home she helped pay for. The home she gave up her life for. And then Mason, still staring at his phone, muttered under his breath. "She's just old. Useless now." Rosa froze. Her heart didn't break. It sank. But she didn't show it. She walked to the sink, rinsed the pot, turned off the light. And in that darkness, only one thing echoed in her mind. If they won't remember who I was, maybe it's time I remind them. The next morning, Rosa woke up before anyone else. The house felt thick with silence, like it no longer belonged to her. In the kitchen, she made coffee, but didn't pour an extra cup for Evelyn like she did every morning for the past 3 years. She simply sat at the table, staring out the window as the early sun crept across the frosted glass. Mason's words from the night before. She's just old. Useless now, cut deeper than she wanted to admit. But beneath that pain, something stirred. Small, flickering. Not rage, not sadness. Something older than both. Resolve. After breakfast, she climbed up into the attic. The air was stale, filled with dust and forgotten things. She moved past boxes of toys Mason no longer remembered, holiday decorations, and stacks of Evelyn's college textbooks. In the far back corner, buried beneath an old quilt, was a box she hadn't opened in over 2 decades. Inside, photos, worn sheet music, and a faded red folder. Rosa pulled it out, brushing away dust. Inside were letters, booking confirmations, gig flyers, even a clipping from a local newspaper. Rosa Herrera stuns audience with jazz set at the Silver Fox Lounge. She stared at the photo. She was 27, wearing a navy blue dress, saxophone in hand, mouth open mid-laugh. The article called her a local legend in the making. That was before Evelyn was born, before Mark, before the house, before she traded night gigs for night feedings. Rosa felt something tighten in her throat, but she didn't cry. She didn't need to. That woman in the photo? She was still inside her. She just hadn't spoken in a while. That afternoon, when the house was empty again, Rosa went back to the living room and unpacked the saxophone. She practiced slowly, one scale at a time. Her fingers were clumsy at first, but the muscle memory was there, hiding under years of disuse. By evening, she was already better than the day before. That night at dinner, Evelyn talked about her work drama. Mark complained about traffic, and Mason chewed with headphones in. No one asked Rosa how her day was. She didn't offer, but she noticed something. As she hummed softly while washing dishes, Mason looked up. Just for a second, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen in months. Curiosity, maybe even recognition. The next day, Rosa did something she hadn't done in years. She put on lipstick. Nothing dramatic, just a soft rose color. She walked to the community center 2 blocks away, holding her red folder in one hand and a small stack of photos in the other. When she stepped inside, the receptionist looked up from her computer. "Hi, can I help you?" Rosa smiled. "Yes, I'm here about the jazz showcase. I'd like to audition." The woman blinked. "You're a musician?" Rosa's smile widened. "I was, and now I'm coming back." When Evelyn saw the lipstick the next morning, she smirked. "Big plans today, Mom?" Rosa didn't flinch. "Just getting some fresh air." Evelyn didn't press. Mark barely looked up from his laptop. Mason grunted something from under his hoodie. Rosa left before anyone could say another word. The air outside was brisk, the kind that woke your bones and made you feel strangely alive. She carried nothing but her saxophone case and a quiet determination. At the community center, the rehearsal space was small but well lit. A woman in her 40s, with curly hair and warm eyes, greeted her with a clipboard. "You're Rosa?" Rosa nodded. "You're here for the open slot in the Friday showcase?" Rosa opened her case slowly, carefully. "I am." There were 3 people already seated, a piano player, a drummer, and a younger man with a guitar. They looked up with mild curiosity. The guitarist whispered something to the pianist and chuckled. Rosa heard it. She ignored it. She adjusted the strap, stepped forward, and said, "May I?" The drummer gave a light nod, and they started to play something slow, bluesy. She waited for her cue. Then she played. The first note wavered slightly. The second held. The third soared. The room changed. The whispering stopped. The guitarist leaned forward, mouth slightly open. Rosa didn't just play. She told a story about sacrifice and silence, about lost years and buried talent. When she finished, the room was still. The pianist blinked. "That was something." The curly-haired woman smiled. "Welcome to the lineup, Rosa." Rosa felt something swell inside her chest. Not pride, not yet, but something close. That evening, she returned home late. Evelyn frowned. "Where were you?" "I was about to call." Rosa removed her coat slowly. "I had rehearsal." "Rehearsal for what?" Mark asked, a fry halfway to his mouth. Rosa placed her saxophone case gently on the table. "A performance. Friday night, Community center? Evelyn scoffed. You're performing? Mom, are you serious? Mason looked up from his phone. Wait, you play music? Rosa didn't answer them. She walked to the fridge, poured herself a glass of water, and said, Dinner's in the oven. I'm going to rest. Upstairs, she lay on her bed staring at the ceiling. Her body ached, but her mind hummed. Evelyn's laugh still rang in her ears, that patronizing tone, that disbelief. It used to hurt. Now, it only fueled her. She whispered to herself, They'll see. Friday arrived faster than expected. Rosa wore a deep burgundy blouse and black slacks. Her hair was tied back neatly, silver strands shining like threads of light. She dabbed on the same rose lipstick. When she stepped into the green room, the other performers were already warming up. The curly-haired organizer approached her. You ready? Rosa nodded. Always. Backstage, she could hear the murmurs of the crowd. Then she heard something that froze her breath. Mason's voice. Mom, that's her. That's my grandma. She peeked through the curtain. Evelyn was there. Mark, too. Mason had a phone in his hand, already recording. Rosa stepped back and took a deep breath. This wasn't about proving anything to them. This was about remembering herself. But if they saw it too, if they finally understood, so be it. The lights dimmed. Her name was called. Rosa stepped onto the stage. Alone, saxophone in hand, heart pounding, but eyes steady. She stood in the spotlight, the warmth of it hitting her face, and for a brief moment, she forgot there was anyone else in the room. The quiet buzz of anticipation from the audience faded. All she could hear was her breath, the soft creak of the stage beneath her shoes, and the slow, familiar thrum in her chest that had been missing for too many years. Rosa lifted the saxophone, closed her eyes, and played the first note. It was rich, deep, a little rough around the edges, just like her. As she moved through the melody, her body began to loosen. Every phrase she played peeled away another layer of rust, of silence, of motherhood's invisible cloak. She didn't see the faces in the crowd, but she felt them. They leaned in. They listened. She weaved notes like threads in fabric, stitching together a version of herself that had been hidden under aprons and grocery lists and forgotten birthdays. When the last note faded, there was a second of stillness, and then applause. Not polite, not obligatory. It was loud. It was real. It was hers. Rosa bowed, eyes shining, and walked off stage without looking into the audience. Backstage, the curly-haired woman grinned. You just stole the night. Rosa nodded, breathless. Thank you. She was wrapping her instrument when she heard her name behind her. Mom? Rosa turned. Evelyn stood there, awkward, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Mason hovered behind her, phone still in hand. You never told us you could do that, Evelyn said, her voice quieter than usual. You never asked, Rosa replied. Evelyn opened her mouth, then closed it. That was impressive, she finally muttered. You were really good, Grandma, Mason said with more energy. My friends on the stream said you were cool. Like, actually cool. Rosa smiled softly. Thank you, Mason. Mark appeared last, phone pressed to his ear. Yeah, she's some kind of local legend or something, he said into the phone, clearly talking to someone else. Rosa tilted her head. That something is a woman who gave up the stage so your wife could have a college education. Mark blinked, caught off guard. I didn't. It's fine, Rosa said. None of you knew, but now you do. Evelyn stepped forward, looking a little smaller than usual. Why didn't you say anything all these years? Rosa looked her daughter in the eye. Because I didn't think I needed to prove my worth to anyone. Then, softer. But I suppose I forgot it myself. The drive home was silent. Evelyn sat in the passenger seat while Rosa rode in the back with Mason. For once, Mason didn't have his headphones on. He was scrolling through his phone. "Grandma, you're getting views," he whispered. "Someone already posted your solo." Rosa chuckled. "Should I be worried?" "No," he grinned. "You're going viral." At home, Evelyn lingered in the hallway. "Mom," she said hesitantly, "I'm sorry for how we've treated you. I didn't mean to forget who you were." Rosa stepped past her and placed her saxophone back in its case. "You didn't forget, Evelyn. You never knew." The next morning, Rosa woke up to sunlight pouring through the curtains and something else she hadn't heard in a long time: laughter. Downstairs, Mason was showing Evelyn the video again, now edited with filters, music, even slow-motion clips of her solo. "She looks like she's in a movie," he said. Evelyn didn't argue. Rosa stood quietly at the top of the stairs, listening. She wasn't ready to go down yet, not because she was hurt, but because she was no longer desperate to be seen. She had already seen herself, and that changed everything. Later that day, she received a call from the community center. "Hi, Rosa. This is Kayla, the director. We had some local press reach out. They want to do a story on the showcase. On you, specifically." Rosa hesitated. "On me?" "Yes. Your story. It moved people. Would you be open to an interview?" Rosa exhaled. "I'll think about it." When she told Evelyn, her daughter's face went stiff. "They want to talk to you?" "Yes." Evelyn paused. "Just be careful. Reporters can twist things." Rosa looked at her with a calm stare. Why would the truth need twisting? That evening, Evelyn made dinner. For the first time in months, she set the table without being asked. They ate in silence at first, but it was less sharp, less full of unsaid things. Finally, Evelyn asked, "Do you miss it?" "Music, I mean." Rosa set her fork down. "Every day, but I chose you." Evelyn's eyes dropped. "I didn't know what you gave up." "No," Rosa said softly. "You didn't want to know." After dinner, Mason pulled up a message on his phone. "Grandma, some guy named Calvin wants to talk to you. He owns a music lounge downtown." Rosa's brow lifted. "Calvin?" "Yeah, he said he remembers you from back in the day. Said he always wondered what happened to you." The name jogged something. Calvin Miles. He had owned the Velvet Room back when Rosa played late sets after closing shifts. He was the first person who ever said she could headline. That night, she sat alone in her room, staring at her reflection. The silver in her hair, the faint lines at her eyes, the quiet power behind them. Her phone buzzed, a message from a number she didn't recognize. "Rosa, if you're still playing, I have a spot for you. Friday nights. Just say the word." "Calvin." Rosa smiled. It wasn't a big smile, but it reached her eyes. Downstairs, Evelyn was cleaning the kitchen. Mark was watching a game. Mason had fallen asleep on the couch. Rosa stood in the doorway and said, "I think I'll go out for a walk." Evelyn looked up. "It's getting dark." Rosa picked up her coat. "That never stopped me before." She left quietly, her footsteps steady on the pavement. The wind brushed her face like a memory. She didn't know exactly where she was walking, but she knew it was forward. The next day, Rosa accepted Calvin's offer. She didn't announce it at dinner. She didn't wait for permission or applause. She simply replied, "I'm in," and packed her things the next morning. Not to leave the house, but to return to herself. On Friday, she arrived at the Velvet Room half an hour early. The space had changed. New walls, new lighting, but the stage was still in the same spot, a little corner tucked under a golden spotlight. Calvin greeted her with the same crooked smile he had 30 years ago. "You haven't aged a bit," he said. Rosa laughed. "You always were a terrible liar." He led her backstage. "The place is full tonight. Mostly younger folks. Think they're about to get a dose of auto-tune and Instagram covers. They have no idea. Rosa touched the velvet curtain and exhaled. Let them come. She didn't feel nerves this time. Not even pressure. She was past all that. What she felt was readiness. When she stepped onto the stage, a few heads turned in polite curiosity. She saw phones already up. Whispers. Confused glances. Who is she? Is she somebody's grandmother? Rosa didn't flinch. She raised her saxophone, and the room fell quiet. The first note cut the air like silk. Smooth, deliberate, defiant. She didn't play for the crowd. She played for the girl she used to be, for the woman she became, and for the voice inside her that had been silent for too long. By the end of the second piece, the room had transformed. A standing ovation. Young faces lit up not from screens, but from something real. Raw. Alive. When she walked off stage, breathless and glowing, Calvin put a hand on her shoulder. I knew you still had it. Rosa smiled. I never lost it. I just gave it away for a while. Back home, the house was quiet. Evelyn looked up as she walked in, eyes wide. How did it go? Rosa hung up her coat slowly. It went exactly how it should. Evelyn nodded, unsure what to say. Then she held out a folded piece of paper. Mason made this. For you. Rosa unfolded it. A drawing. A stage. A crowd. And in the middle, her, playing the saxophone, with big bold letters written in his shaky handwriting. My grandma is a legend. Her throat tightened. But this time, the tears came not from pain, but from something lighter. Something healing. He wants to learn, Evelyn said. He asked if you'd teach him. Rosa looked down at the drawing, then up at her daughter. I'd like that. That night, she placed the drawing beside the red folder in her closet, not as proof, but as legacy. The following week, something shifted in the house. Not loudly, not all at once, but in the subtle way winter begins to soften into spring. Evelyn started knocking before entering Rosa's room. Mark stopped leaving dishes in the sink. And Mason, he lingered after dinner, asking quiet questions about music. What's the first thing I should learn? He asked one night. Rosa looked at him thoughtfully. To listen. Music isn't just sound, it's attention, emotion. He nodded, like he understood more than he let on. On Thursday evening, Evelyn surprised her with a clean set of shelves in the guest room. You can keep your music things here if you want. I mean, unless you'd rather... Rosa raised a brow. You're not trying to push me out again, are you? Evelyn shook her head quickly. I never made room for you. Not really. Rosa studied her daughter's face. The defensiveness was gone, replaced by something uncertain. Guilt, maybe, or regret. You made room for what you thought I was, Rosa said gently. Not for who I really am. That weekend, she played again at the Velvet Room. This time, Mason came with her. Evelyn, too. Rosa didn't ask them to. They just showed up. Mason brought a notebook and sat in the front row. Evelyn filmed parts of the performance. Afterward, Calvin came backstage. You've got a following now, he said, handing her a printout. Jazz Weekly wants to do a profile. Said your story's inspiring. Rosa stared at the paper, her name in bold, her photo beside it. Evelyn read over her shoulder and whispered, Wow. It's not just about music, Calvin added. It's about women starting over, owning who they are. Rosa felt the words settle in her chest like a slow drumbeat. Starting over. Not escaping, not fixing, just becoming. At home that night, Mark brought her tea without being asked. I didn't get it before, he said. I don't know. You were just there, background. Rosa sipped the tea and met his eyes. And now? Now I see what Evelyn meant when she said she learned strength from you. Rosa nodded slowly. It's never too late to see people clearly. But once you do, you don't get to look away again. Evelyn joined them with Mason in tow. He wants to perform something at school, for his talent show. A solo? Rosa asked. He wants to play with you, Evelyn replied. Like a duet. Rosa looked at her grandson. You ready for that? Mason grinned. Only if you promise not to outshine me. Rosa laughed. No promises. That night, she stayed up late at the kitchen table, polishing her saxophone, marking new notes, writing arrangements. But what mattered most wasn't the music, it was that for the first time in decades, she wasn't playing alone. The night of the school talent show arrived, with the kind of buzz usually reserved for holidays. The auditorium was packed. Students, teachers, parents, cell phones raised in shaky hands. Rosa stood backstage with Mason, his hands fidgeting on the neck of a borrowed alto sax. He looked up at her, eyes nervous but bright. What if I mess up? He whispered. Rosa knelt beside him. Then you breathe, listen, and keep playing. Music isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. Their names were called. The lights dimmed. They stepped into the glow. A ripple moved through the crowd. Some murmured in surprise at the sight of the older woman beside the boy. But the moment the music began, all of that fell away. Rosa opened with a slow, bluesy intro. Mason followed, a little hesitant at first, but steadier with every note. Together, they filled the room with something unfiltered and alive. When their final harmony echoed through the auditorium, the room exploded in applause. Students stood. Parents clapped harder than anyone expected. Teachers wiped at their eyes. Evelyn filmed the whole thing, hands shaking, heart thudding. Even Mark stood, whistling. Rosa smiled as they took their bows. But inside, it wasn't pride she felt. It was healing. The next morning, a teacher from Mason's school called. That performance, people are still talking about it. We'd love for Rosa to lead a music workshop for the students. Evelyn's jaw dropped when she heard. They want you to teach? Rosa nodded. Seems they do. Over the following weeks, her days began to fill. She held weekly sessions at the school, performed at local cafes, gave interviews. The article in Jazz Weekly went viral. People she hadn't heard from in decades began reaching out. One message stood out. A woman named Clara, who wrote, I was at your Silver Fox show in 1988. I never forgot the way you made the room feel. I'm so glad you're still playing. Rosa sat with that message for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. It just settled deep in her chest like a warm cord. At home, everything was different now. Evelyn started calling her mom again instead of ma. Mark asked her for advice on his business plans. Mason came to her with questions that had nothing to do with homework. One evening, Evelyn approached her in the living room. I've been thinking, she began, about everything, about how I treated you. I don't think I really saw you until now. Rosa didn't interrupt. She let her daughter speak. I just thought you had given up. I didn't realize you were still holding on to something. Something beautiful. Rosa looked at her. I didn't give up, Evelyn. I just gave it away for you. Evelyn's voice cracked. And I acted like it didn't matter. Rosa reached out and took her hand. Now you know. That's what matters. Outside, Mason practiced scales on the porch, his notes drifting into the twilight. Inside, Rosa sat at the piano, her fingers brushing keys she hadn't touched in years. She played a simple melody, soft and slow, and the house, for the first time in so long, felt full. The letter came on a Tuesday, tucked between bills and flyers, printed on creamy stationery with a gold emblem at the top. Rosa almost tossed it, but something made her pause. It was from the director of the State Arts Foundation. The message was simple, elegant, and astonishing. We'd be honored if you would headline our summer jazz gala. We believe your story and music deserve a larger stage. Rosa read it twice, then a third time. The words didn't quite land. She placed the letter on the table and sat down slowly. Across from her, Evelyn watched carefully. What is it? Rosa looked up. They want me. For a gala. A real one. Big stage, press tourists, national attention. Evelyn blinked. Like, as in you'd travel? A few weeks, maybe a month, rehearsals, press events, performances? Evelyn hesitated. That's incredible. But Rosa heard it, the slight tremor in her voice, the fear of what it meant. You're worried, Rosa said. Evelyn exhaled. I'm not used to needing you, and now that I do, I'm scared to lose you again. Rosa softened. You're not losing me. You're just finally sharing me with the world. That night, she sat in her room with the letter open on her lap. The house was quiet, but her mind was loud. All the years she'd stayed, the meals she'd cooked, the tears she'd swallowed, the music she'd buried. Now the world was knocking again. And this time, she wasn't turning it away. The next morning, at breakfast, she cleared her throat. I've decided. I'm going to do it. Mark looked up from his phone. The gala? She nodded. It's time. Evelyn bit her lip. Do you need help packing? Rosa smiled. That would be nice. For the next few days, the house became a flurry of motion. Mason helped polish her saxophone. Evelyn arranged hotel bookings. Even Mark printed out her schedule and put it on the fridge. On the day of her departure, the whole family drove her to the train station. Mason hugged her tightly. Will you still come back? Always, she said. But not the same way. Evelyn held her longer than expected. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long to say that. Rosa touched her daughter's cheek. You're saying it now. That's enough. As the train pulled away, she looked out the window at the three faces on the platform. Once, she had stayed behind for them. Now, they were letting her go. Not because they didn't need her, but because they finally saw her. Not as a mother, not as a helper, not as background, but as Rosa. The gala hall shimmered with gold lights and hushed anticipation. Rows of velvet chairs stretched into the distance, filled with strangers in elegant clothes. Rosa stood backstage in a navy blue suit that hugged her shoulders like it had been made for this exact night. Her saxophone was polished, her fingers warm. Yet what steadied her most wasn't the rehearsal or the notes. It was the memory of Mason's drawing, folded neatly in her suitcase. My grandma is a legend. She stepped onto the stage to a wave of applause. Cameras flashed, the lights dimmed, and then silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but waiting. She lifted the saxophone, breathed, played. The first notes floated like silk, smooth and knowing. The second swelled with history. The third dared the world to look away. And no one did. Each phrase wove her life into the music. Youth, sacrifice, invisibility, rediscovery. The room swayed with her story. By the time she hit the final note, the audience was already rising to their feet. She bowed. Once, twice. The thunder of applause didn't stop. It followed her off stage, into the green room, into the hallway where reporters waited with questions. But she didn't stay long. She took the back stairs, slipped outside, and breathed in the summer night. Stars above, stillness around. Her phone buzzed, a video call from home. She answered. Evelyn, Mark, and Mason crowded into the frame. We saw it, Evelyn beamed. They're streaming it everywhere. You killed it, Mark added. Legend, Mason grinned. Rosa smiled. I didn't do it alone. You did the hardest part alone, Evelyn said. You remembered who you were. Rosa's throat tightened. I'm not done yet. We know, Evelyn said. And we'll be here, watching. Rosa ended the call and stared out across the empty parking lot. She thought about going back, but not yet. A woman approached from the venue doors, a festival coordinator. Ms. Herrera, there's a producer from New York who'd love to speak with you. He's asking if you'd consider a short tour. Rosa paused. A tour, another chapter. She looked down at her hands, strong, weathered, unshaking. Tell him I'll listen. The woman smiled and walked off. Rosa stood alone for a moment, her saxophone by her side, the world quietly opening around her. This wasn't about revenge anymore, or proving herself, or even being seen. It was about living. Fully. Finally. And from now on, unapologetically.